How was your experience in LARPing?
I lasted 2 seconds. I got stabbed in the back.
Hey, welcome. It's MileSplit Live. I'm Corey Mom here with Travis Miller and Brian Dybel. And I don't know if you know what you just saw, but we experienced that this past week in Beavercreek, Ohio, while we were doing a project on a very talented girl from Beavercreek. Her name's Taylor Ewert. But we had a little bit of a small time to relax, and Brian took up some live action, real time
LARPing, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to the Beavercreek JV boys squad. JV boys teams across the country are always super interesting.
Yeah.
That Beavercreek does the LARPing. That was kind of fun though.
It's like a pretty weak performance there, Brian.
Yeah, bro. That's my first time ever doing it, and I ran out and I was like, oh, I'm going right for that kid. And then as soon as I went for that kid, some other kid just came up and boop, stabbed me right in the back, and I was like, I can't just keep going. I gotta die. That's how it works. So
we need to try that again sometime.
I think I need a LARPing lesson. So if there's anybody else out there who wants to give me a lesson in LARPing, I'll take one.
Bring it back to NXN.
Someday.
Yeah.
Well, as you can tell, Brian and I both have our Mojo shirts on right now. I don't know if you can see it. Mojo. This is the motto that Beavercreek High School's girls team kind of goes by this year. They're ranked in the nation now at number 10. Appeared on our list for the first time 2 weeks ago, and now they've moved up a spot. Beavercreek, really interesting team out of Ohio now. It's usually been Centerville, but now Beavercreek kind of making their move, and it's really helmed by that Taylor Ewert girl. We've seen her for a while, race walk champ, American record holder in a lot of different distances, but now she's elite at that distance too, at the 5K.
Yeah, and I think for that team, we were not necessarily expecting her to be as good as she's been this season, but we knew she was going to be really good coming off of the success she's had. I've been more impressed with the depth of the team that is coming behind her, especially with their second and third runners really being a big part of the reason why they're now moving up the national rankings. It's been really exciting to see a team like that who really was off the radar as a top 10 or 15 team coming into the season start to show that, you can have that kind of progression year to year, and Beavercreek could mix it up this season.
Yeah, what did you think of Howard, too, as a coach? You've seen a lot of coaches at different campuses across the country over the last couple of years. Howard, as a coach, I mean, he gets the job done. He's a good one.
Awesome guy, yeah. I think his mentality is different than some coaches, but obviously very similar to a lot. You see two different styles. I think his style is more like, hey, let's go out here and get our job done. Like, we know what we need to do. He's very compassionate and just kind of like a dad figure almost in a way. You get some coaches that are a little stricter, a little harder. He was like super like, hey, positive energy. Let's get this done. Let's go out here and do what we can do. Like, we know where we're at. We know how the season's going to roll. It was really cool just to be part of the team experience and see Beavercreek in action too.
Yeah, we got a couple photos while we were there with Howard and some teammates that wanted to get photos with MileSplit, our two guys here. But we just want to thank you, everyone at Beavercreek, for having us there for a couple days, and stay tuned. The next maybe month we'll have a feature on Taylor on MileSplit right before maybe regions, maybe before Nike Cross Nationals. So that should be fun to watch. Let's get into our 5 big storylines from this weekend. It really was a weekend helmed by Youth Olympics in Argentina, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Manhattan Invitational in New York. But we're going to start first. Number 5, conference championships really began in a lot of different places. Some athletes stood out to you guys. Anything in particular that you want to spotlight?
Cole Hocker indirectly, not him specifically, but his team, Indianapolis Cathedral, sneakily coming together as a program that could challenge for a berth here at NXN. If you look at them in Carmel and the Illinois, the perennial favorites, you have the Warrenville Wheat Thins or whatever they're called, are like definitely number 1. Hersey's good, but the Indianapolis Cathedral team and Carmel have been kind of trading wins back and forth this season, and they've been looking just as good as any of the other programs kind of behind WWS right now. And I think when you have a guy like that out at front, that definitely takes you to a next step. And for them, he obviously ran really well. But for me, it was looking at that team battle and seeing that if those two teams keep progressing, we'll see them through the Indiana State season now. But I think, if they go to the regional, it shouldn't overlook one of those two Indiana teams to pull off an upset.
About a week ago, he told me that their school there aren't really known for their running history, their tradition there. So they're really creating something at Cathedral that hopefully can kind of stand over the next couple of years. But I agree with you. We finished second at state last year to Gabe Fendel. The guy is supremely talented, and he's looking for a state title. What about yourself, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Cole Hawker also. He had, I mean, the two Coles I was looking at. So Cole Hawker, that race that he had is almost a sub-15 performance all alone, 190 speed rating, so really impressive from him individually as well. And then Cole Sprout, he ran really strong at the Jefferson County 4A, 5A League Championships in Colorado. He ran a 189 speed rating, again, pretty much alone. 15-13 was his time. So both Coles, doing some pretty big things at their region meets. Also, London Culbreth taking a nice easy jog in to win her district meet. Just figured I'd give her a little shout out there too.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Ohio. I'm going to go to Conant Smith. Early in the year, we didn't see a lot of him. It was a couple different guys that were making their names or maybe some statements. Those guys have maybe fallen off. Conant Smith has really made his way up. First sub-15 performance this season, Greater Miami Championships, 14:56. He's coming off a commitment to Arizona State, so he's feeling all kinds of good. He told Mark Dwyer, our Ohio MileSplit editor, after that meet that his sole plan was to get out hard, get out fast, and really take it to that field. So, that's a good performance out of him, and he's got a lot more coming up. So I think Conant Smith at the conference championships was a pretty good one, a pretty good statement. Number 4, which was a bit of news from last week that carried over into the Manhattan Invitational. FM did not compete at Eastern States for the first time since 2004. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I don't think it's a bad move for them, this team that's trying to get on their feet and figure out what their identity is this season. I think putting them in a situation where they can be a little more relaxed, not have that pressure of running against all those other teams is it's definitely the safe move. I think, you don't like it because you want to see them against those other teams, but from their standpoint, it's the safest way for them to get some more experience in an event like that.
Part of the challenge too is, they obviously, based on what they did in the B race, they could have stacked up against Claremont and the second place team as well. But you kind of see if they're in that race, maybe something else happens. Claire's running at the top, Phoebe's running well, the Kirchners are running well. Who knows what's going to happen with the 5 if they're in the Eastern States race? I would have been curious, to say the least, to see what they would have done if they would have raced at Eastern States. First different champion from Eastern States since 2004. I think the first California team to win since 1990. So it was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a full merge up on New York MileSplit that you can all check out. And FM would have finished 3rd overall. And, in that meet, about almost 100 points back from Liverpool in 2nd, but still they would have finished fairly well between those teams. So FM playing it safe, from a fan's perspective, you want to see them run.
They're getting better though. They're
not back.
Yeah, they're getting better though.
But as I said in our meeting earlier today, there's no denying what FM's capable of doing. Clearly Bill Ayers has that group ready to go when it matters and counts the most. So you can't really count them out no matter what. I mean, a 3rd place, what would have been a 3rd place finish at overall is pretty impressive to me for a squad who really were kind of where are they going to find the depth this year that they've had in years past? 18
girls on that roster. I mean, we know Claire, and then it's everybody else. Where are they going to fit? I think easily on any given day, the Kirchners could run really well. They could maybe be in the 120s, which is where your 3 and your 4 need to be. Your 5, what's that 5 going to do when the time permits of it? So I think that's the question that FM will eventually get answered,
I think
on the road to state.
Some of the bigger questions coming too in terms of experience with an inexperienced team is right now they are not the best team in their section, and they're not going to be going to the state meet. There's still some races to be had there, but I foresee, and what everything indicates up to this point, is that Liverpool beats them. FM doesn't get to race the state meet like they always do, and then the only choices you have after that are Feds and the regional. FM has always skipped Feds so they can get a week off to race the regional. If they don't qualify for the state meet, you have this inexperienced team. Does FM now get put in a situation where they have to race that weekend because they just need to get some more reps? I think it'll be interesting to see that. I mean, a sectional race is a lot in the line. I think especially this year, because in the past, if they lost at sectionals, this is still but this is a very different year that we're going into. So I think those couple weeks will be really interesting to see if FM loses at sectionals, what the rest of their season looks like.
I think that's a great question. I definitely do. We'll get that answer in the coming weeks. Number 3 right now on the storylines, Youth Olympics in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Why are we still running track right now?
Kind of crazy, really. Every 4 years, Youth Olympics goes down in some type of country. This year, it's in Argentina. We had 7 American teenagers competing at the games. Grace Stark, Thing Mo, Nicholas Ramey, Malcolm something or other Clemens, and Megan Hunter. If I'm missing other athletes, I apologize, but I am missing some. But Grace Stark won a gold medal recently, and that was really cool.
Fastest time in history over the 30-inch hurdles. So that's
Yeah, Grace Stark.
It's pretty laughable watching her because you can tell. You always like, what's the difference between 30, 33? But you watch that race, it's like, oh, it's almost like there's not hurdles on the track. I mean, 12.8 is insane.
Racing up to competition, really, in the moment. I mean, this is a big competition. We're way past track, right? So they're not working on a lot of reps or foundation. I mean, it's basically just on inherent skill. Grace Stark's sort of inherent DNA to get over the hurdles fast, I think, is what she's working on. But I think it's just unbelievable that she was able to do this. And Grace Stark, to be fair, might not even be the best hurdler in her class. Tia Jones went to U20. She won U20s. She won USA Juniors. I mean, this girl is phenomenal as well. So Grace Stark, Tia Jones, I don't even know who you pick between those two.
Yeah, it's tough. I think this is just a long line of like USA hurdle dominance. So, you look at international meets. At Rio, USA swept the podium. At London, they were second in the Olympic Games. And I know this is Youth Olympics, and this is maybe a couple of years down the road. But Grace Stark and a lot of these young kids have their eyes set on the actual Olympics, the full scale. So it's interesting to see, especially a girl like Grace Stark, running so well. What she could possibly do.
What about a thing? 205 in the 800.
Also blowing things away. 205 in the 800. That you said that's her second best performance all time. And again, 5 weeks of training, I think you put in there.
Mm-hmm.
Super, super impressive. And you kind of alluded to it, and you definitely alluded to it. They're not in season. Like they're not like peaking for anything. This is kind of like an off season for us. It's just funny because in Buenos Aires, it's coming into summer. Like the way obviously the things work. So it's colder down there. I think. Jeff Harbaugh, I want to say the guy from Michigan. He tweeted something about Grace Stark saying asked her how the weather was down there, and she's like, oh, nothing compared to Michigan's, Michigan winter. So it's just like she's used to competing in those cold temperatures, which also probably helped her in a big way.
A thing went up against Australia's top youth prospect, Keela Small. What did you think of her maybe going against this world, talent?
I think these are good opportunities for her. We've talked about this throughout the outdoor season. She doesn't get to race as much as a lot of athletes, so to get reps in elite conditions is important. And we saw the downside of that with her lack of experience in the first round in the heats. She went out way too fast in the prelim, ended up fading to third on that second lap because she just didn't have enough left in the tank. On that in the final, she this time was playing much more conservative. The race went out slower. She was sitting in the back of the pack with about 300 meters to go. There, right when the race started picking up and people started ramping up the pace, one of the athletes fell, and the thing was on the back end of that. And so there's actually a really big gap. She got cut off a position. Now, last 200, I wish they had a split on it because it was nuts. She was in fourth. She came out of nowhere. I mean, if that race was another 10 meters, she would have caught the Australian. So I think for her, it's a really great learning experience to go through that adversity. Obviously, we know what kind of 200 speed she has. She showed it's still there. But to kind of reiterate and really ingrain how important positioning is in those kind of races, I think it's a great experience for her. To still run 205, all things considered, is crazy.
And Nick Ramey as well in 400 won bronze, 47-27. It should be mentioned that all three of these athletes did not compete a lot over the spring season. Yeah. Like they were tapered back by their coaches, to only run a certain amount of races. So I think in the big picture, that kind of served them well for an event like this.
For sure. I mean, Nick Ramey's time would have been U.S. number 38 during the regular season. So I think that says a lot there. And 47-27, that's an impressive performance. Like U.S. number 38 last year. It's really impressive to see what these guys, these talents were all able to do.
Well, they'll come back to the States eventually. We have a couple of Americans competing today: Skylar Ciccolini in the javelin, and I believe Malcolm Clemens in the high jump or long jump. So I apologize if I'm wrong there. But they'll come back to the States. Maybe we'll get in touch with them, talk to them, see what their experience was like. Number 2 storyline was maybe the big individual winners at Manhattan. Claire Walters had an epic performance in the B race. Charles Hicks threw down a nasty race in Eastern States Boys Championship. And Abby Loveys of New Jersey made a big statement winning Eastern States Girls Race. So it could be this race, could be another race. What were some of the big individual moments for you from Manhattan?
I think Lovey's was really impressive. Claire Walters, phenomenal. You know, a lot of historic implications there, but we've known how good Claire is for a long time. To see Lovey's run that kind of a time just shy of breaking 14 minutes, I think was really impressive, and maybe the one performance that stood out the most.
Yeah, I was looking at Charles Hicks. I know last week you kind of gave me some slack for dropping him off the rankings. He finished 4th at Great American. It was kind of like, oh, what happened to Charles? And then he comes back and just absolutely just runs away with the meet this time around. So, you know, Charles, I think I owe him an apology like I did for Jake Renfrey earlier in the season, give him a little bit of doubt, but, you know, proved the haters wrong on this one, and he ran really well. Yeah, it was a great performance from him. I'm
going to go with Claire. I think just a couple of facts behind her race. 5th all-time at Van Cortlandt's course, beating Aisling Cuff, which is phenomenal runner. She's a professional, I believe, right now for Saucony. She's the first time under 14 minutes for FM in their history running at Manhattan Invitational. And, I mean, she could be one of the best runners FM's had in their history. You know, looking at their records overall, Jillian Fanning was a very, very good runner back in 2010, but Claire has the potential maybe to upend, her 5K best. She's got her 4K best now. I think Claire Walters is on a good path toward maybe, producing the best overall career at FM if she just keeps going. So great moments out of them. Number 1 storyline.
Hold on. I still have something to talk about individually.
Okay.
Ryan Oosting finally has had his first race of the season. Wasn't anything super crazy. I think it's still kind of low key. But for me, that was a big thing because he was on the MileSplit 50 for the longest time. But eventually, without racing, we had to drop him off. It's just how it had to be. He ran at the Bay State Invitational, ran 15:49 for the win there. I just wanted to give him a shout out. First race of the season. We all know what he's able to do in track with some crazy big performances in the mile, 2 mile, and things like that. So, keep an eye out for him. I think he's still coming on strong. I think he still has a lot left in the tank. We'll see how things go, especially down the line come, the state meet and some of those regional qualifiers for national meets.
All right. Number 1 storyline is the team championship surprise action there on the guys' side. Bishop Hendricken coming back off of a performance at Great American wins the Eastern States Championship. And on the girls' side, Claremont winning for the first time since 1990 on the girls' side. So 2 big wins there, kind of surprises in some ways.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from Manhattan on the boys' side was none of the Manhattan boys' teams were as good as Burnt Hills were. Burnt Hills ran at their home invitational this weekend, and they're back. Aiden Glooly is coming off an injury. He was a number 2 runner. Phenomenal speed rating here. Evan Brennan still not running back at full form. You have 3 guys running in the 180s. And the thing I love about this team now that they're back and healthy is they are running better every single week, especially if you look at their 4 and 5, where we know they have had a really good top 3, but their 4 and 5 haven't quite been as strong, and that's where some of those gaps have been. Every single race of this season, their 4 and 5 have run better. And this is a team that's progressing. Their top 3 are just as good as any top 3 in the nation right now. And to see them do what they did, I think is a huge statement as they prep for the New York State Championship season. If you look at their top speed ratings right now, they stack up just about as well as any of the national championship podium teams at nationals last year. So this is definitely a team that we were worried about after some injury stuff, but they're back.
I don't know where you come up with this stuff from. You can look at
facts.
You can look at everything. Facts. Everything's facts.
Yes.
I'll tell you what. I did like how they ran this weekend, but I still am not 100% confident in what they can do. They proved handily that without all 5 of their guys at McQuaid, that they're going to lose, and that's just how it is. They have a super good guy in Tyler Berg in the front, and after that, they got their second guy is also pretty good. After that, though, the depth just isn't there to help support them through. Like, if somebody falters, they're done for. And if that happens at a regional meet, happens at the state meet, the wheels could fall off the wagon. They also got beat by Dana Hills, and I understand they might not have had their guy. And then Dana Hills goes back to California.
They did not have their guy. There wasn't
whatever.
a question
Dana Hills
there.
go back to California and then gets absolutely dominated at Clovis. And I understand there's a quick turnaround back-to-back meets, but if you're one of the top teams in the country, you don't go from winning a meet with a team that's supposedly one of the top teams in the country by that much, and then going to Clovis and getting your butts handed to you a little bit. They're both still in national rankings. Both teams are solid, but I'll tell you what, I don't think Burnt Hills is one of the strongest teams you think they are. We'll see how things fare down the road, but they're going to have all of their guys run extremely well when it comes down to it and comes time to put things together. And that's just how it is. I'm sorry.
That was a hard pivot, guys.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about Manhattan anymore.
Anyways.
as we shouldn't, because none of those teams ran
You're
as
not
well
going to
as
give
Burnt Hills
no,
did.
Wait,
but
hold up,
Manhattan
hold up,
was
hold
a
up.
solid race.
Can we please
tons
give
of top
Bishop
national-
Hendricken
Yes,
the
we do
credit?
need to give
They
them the
finished
due credit.
They
They
finished
finished
fourth,
very well.
fourth at Great American,
Yeah.
right? They're coming back from a trip to North Carolina.
Well,
to
based
run.
on Brian's logic, that means their team is garbage because you're going from fourth to first, and there's no consistency
They
there. So we
bounced
shouldn't
back
even
in a
look at it as
huge
being
way.
worthwhile.
No, well, so if you're okay, so your
So-
logic is if this team beats this team this week, that team automatically goes ahead of that team. That's what you said last week or 2 weeks ago when you're on the show. So you take that team that won that time, and then so they maybe lose the next week. So then what do? All of a sudden they're the worst team. So Burnt Hills was the worst team. They lost. Yes, they won their home invitational, but the teams that they beat, there was nobody's. Where was the national rankings for the teams that they beat?
It's not about the teams they beat. It's about the speed ratings
It is about
that
the teams they
ran.
beat as well, though. Nationally rankings, if you look at the national rankings, that's how it is. I'm sorry. That's how we've always debated moving people up or down, is if they've beat somebody in the national rankings, that takes precedence. And Manhattan was a national meet with tons of great speed ratings. You can't just blow off and say Manhattan had no great speed ratings when Bishop Hendricken ran really well, and so did just Claremont. There's tons of great talent there. To blow it off and say that the rankings weren't as good just because Burnt Hills had one good race is incorrect. Sorry.
Well, Burnt Hills ran better.
That's fine.
I'm not blowing
You-
my hand off.
you
I'm
can
saying Burnt
believe
Hills is
that
better.
as much as you want. And I will tell you down the road, we'll see what happens. That's what happens. And
All
if
right.
they win, I'll shake your hand and say I'm sorry that I was incorrect. How's that?
We're betting that then. One small thing, Claremont, congratulations, girls team, winning Eastern States for the first time since 1990 for a Californian team.
Big race for
Very,
them.
very, very good race for them. They moved up to number 3. I'm surprised nobody said, why are they not number 1? But I don't have to defend it now because they're number 3. But anyway, they had a great performance. They had some young talent stepping up to help win that race. Speed ratings look good for them. I will say this, we've gone back and forth about speed ratings. I think speed ratings are great. I think they're indications of how you performed on that day, but I think they get you to the line for the next race, and that's how you determine where these teams go. You got to be subjective in some ways when it comes to actually ranking teams. So that's just my spiel on that.
It was a really good race for Liverpool there in second. That
I
was
agree.
one of their,
I agree.
especially through
Yeah.
like their fourth runner. That was one of their best races they've put together this season. I think for them, definitely shows that they're ready for the FM matchup coming up.
Rebounding off a tough race at Griak too, right?
Yeah.
No, they weren't at Griak.
McQuaid.
They were at McQuaid.
McQuaid,
Yeah. So that was good to respond from that race as well. Let's move on to our next segment. A lot of recruitment stuff's happening, commitments all over the place. We're all tweeting about it this week, next week, up until November 14th, which is National Signing Day for track and field and cross country athletes. So we got a few big ones we want to kind of spotlight here. Go first.
Yeah, I'm talking Drew Bosley from Homestead, Wisconsin. He signed with NAU, as you can see right there. Awesome picture. Not sure who edited that, but shout out to them. It looks really cool. Huge pickup for them. I mean, Drew Bosley, he's made MileSplit 50 #1. Has incredible races this season. Some great speed ratings. And he's joining a team that's run really well. They just run pre-nats. They've had some top impact freshman Ryan Raff already on NAU. So he's a guy who could fit right in and start making impacts, from day one with a squad that's one of the deepest in the nation, or is the deepest in the nation currently.
Yeah. And then Devin Hart and Liam Anderson.
Devin Hart and Liam Anderson also both going to Stanford. 2 huge pickups for them. They were second at pre-nats. So, awesome for them to be joining such good squads. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out for them.
Yeah, we're seeing that arms race developing here with
Oh my gosh.
Stanford
Yeah,
and
for some of the best
NAU
teams.
with Easton Allred also going to NAU right now.
Easton Allred? Wait, who was that?
Easton Allred.
He's at NAU right now as
No, he committed to NAU.
Oh, as a junior. Oh, so he's like jumping the gun a little bit. I didn't see that. So,
For me, it was
Easton,
definitely, I have to go with Anna Hall for this Georgia program and the footsteps she's going to be following. There's so many great comparisons to make here. You know, Kendall Williams was one of the greatest athletes in NCAA history with what she accomplished at Georgia in the multis. She won 7 national titles. She was the first woman or man in NCAA history to win their event 4 times the national championship with 4 titles in the indoor pentathlon. So the amount of success she had at Georgia is incredible. And then you look at Anna Hall, who broke her national record in the heptathlon this year by 200 points, still has another year of development. So we've seen this success the former national record holder had once at Georgia. Now you're getting an athlete who's better than that historically great athlete coming in, following her footsteps. I think this is really exciting for Georgia and really exciting for Anna Hall, and something they need over the last 2 years. Georgia has lost the outdoor national title by a combined 3 points over the last 2 years. They won indoors, so but this is a great ad for them. It's a great fit for Anna Hall, so definitely really exciting to see how that develops.
Yeah, they're becoming multi-U as well. Like the last year's top multis athletes, Kyle Garland and Sterling Lester was the top girl last year. So it's going to be Anna and Sterling both with that squad. I think that's going to be really crazy to watch over the next couple of years at Georgia. I'm actually going to highlight a girl named Bryn Sumner of Woodstock High School based in Georgia. I think this is a really, really interesting signing for Villanova. She's run 2:08 for the 800, 450 for the 1600. I think she's obviously going to get better at that her senior year, but she reminds me a lot of a girl named Angel Piccarello from Pennsylvania. She was a really great high school talent in Pennsylvania, ran really well, but when she went to Villanova, she dropped her time significantly. I think Villanova has proven to work well with mid-distance talents. Bryn Sumner has all the talent in the world to really drop her time once she gets to that program, so I think Bryn Sumner is a good get for Villanova University. So moving on, beyond our recruiting bits is the Pizza Rolls winner of the week. Let's be real, it was fun last week. Caitlin Tui won a vote on Twitter. She became our Pizza Rolls winner of the week, and we sent her some stuff, specifically some pizza, and she sent us back this video, so take a look.
Now.
Thank you for voting me Pizza Roll Athlete of the Week.
Thank you.
Look at right there. Appreciate the love, Caitlin Tui, Brian Diglio for setting that up at North Rockland High School. Really, really cool to see. Yeah, it wasn't really surprising. Caitlin Tui, phenomenal effort this past week and the week before there. Moving on to our nominees this week for Pizza Rolls Athlete of the Week. Sam Affolter of Loudon Valley.
Oh, man.
I'm watching this.
Struggling.
First big performance of the year for him with a sub-15 effort at Third Battle Invitational, and he's recently committed to Washington, so he's got a lot of things going on for him. Number 2, Jack Fillin of Cambridge, Georgia. He earned his second straight win after beating Kyle Harkabis the week previous at ASIC's Invitational. This week he beat Alabama's best distance runner, Will Stone, so he's been on fire recently, so Jack Fillin got that Pizza Roll nomination. Number 3, Bryn Brown of Denton Guyer in Texas. She threw down her second sub-17 performance of the year, this time at UIL District 6A 5 meet. She won in 16:56.80, so congratulations to her. And then Abby Vanderquay of Muskegon, Western Michigan Christian. I can't read. First freshman to break sub-17 performances on the season. I'm going blind here, actually. I don't know what's happening. What are your thoughts on these nominees?
I am going to back Sam Affolter. He's been kind of silent, going through the recruiting process this fall. Hasn't raced, only had a handful of races. And for him, this is the first big commitment to Washington under the new, Powell coaching era. So that's definitely a big step for him and, their coaching staff. They had a huge upset in their race at Pre-Nest this past weekend, running extremely well. But for him, and then, of course, we've talked about a lot of coaching athletes in the past, that back and forth of travel and visits and training and racing can be tough. So for him to go through all that and still be keeping in shape and running sub-15 is a big deal.
Yeah, he had a great week.
Yeah, I like Jack Flynn. I think beating 2 guys who I've definitely had my eye on for the national rankings the past couple of weeks, guys that could possibly slot up and fill in, 20 to 25-ish. Kyle Harkabis, he's a big name. He went to Foot Locker last year as a sophomore, I believe. So to beat him, I think that's really cool, and I think that's a big step for Jack Flynn.
Yeah, and I like Abby Vanderquay. Obviously, the first freshman to break 17 minutes 3 times over the course of a season. Caitlin Tui she didn't do that 2 years ago, so that says a lot about
Are you
this.
saying she's better than Caitlin Tui?
As a freshman, I'm saying she's better than Caitlin Tui. So let's just hope that she maybe races, or I don't know what her plan is, but seeing her race beyond maybe Michigan State Championship meet would be interesting to see what she has left. So I really want to see that. But moving on to our meet previews of the week, we have a lot of great stuff happening. We're going to get to the Mount Sac Invitationals, but we're going to start first with the Utah State Championship meet, which is going down on the 17th. We got our Utah editor, Josh Ornelas, on the line here. Welcome, Josh. Oh, and we can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, buddy. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing good.
Thanks
for having me.
We probably had Sprint service. That's why.
So, Josh, the state meet's coming up tomorrow. First of all, do you know why the Utah State meet's always on a Wednesday? Any look into that? Any idea?
I don't know, but that's just kind of the normal thing around here. So it's been like that for the past 10, 15 years, as far as I can remember.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah. So it's at Sugar House Park. It's beautiful. I was there a couple years ago with Billy. But let's get right into what are some of the things that you're looking forward to most? Happening this weekend or this week.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that 4A girls race. It's sure to be really deep, like teams and individuals. We have an individual girl, Anna Martin, who I think could potentially break the course, or not course, but also meet record. She's been finishing about like a minute ahead of her nearest competitor, and she's just grown like a lot. And she's only a junior, so if she doesn't get it this year, then for sure next year.
Yeah, she's been up and down the national rankings too. She's been definitely running well this year.
And I know Grant Gardner, obviously, big name to watch, and we've talked to him before. You've talked to him quite a few times this season. He's looking to go after that 3-mile course record held by Casey Klinger, 14:42.90. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you think is in his wheelhouse?
Definitely. I mean, he's put in a lot of work this season, and he's super focused. If you compare his times, like his age times compared to Casey's, he's beaten Casey's freshman time. He's beaten his sophomore time. Grant didn't get his junior year time, but he wasn't that far off. And Grant's been looking a lot better than he did his junior year. He's been finishing about 20 to 30 seconds faster than his times. It's hard to say if he's hit his peak or not, because last year he did peak at this race, and he was planning on peaking at NXR and NXN, so we'll see how he's feeling health-wise.
I was just going to say, I know a couple of weeks ago when you interviewed him, he was saying he's a little sick, not feeling great. Any update? Do you know if he's feeling better, hopefully, and the training's been going well for him?
Yeah, I actually met up with him yesterday, and I brought that up. He said that his hip, which has been kind of bothering him this past week and a half, he's feeling good there. He had a slight cold, a lot of like with his throat, but he said that that's kind of cleared up, and he's feeling ready to go.
Awesome, man. I really hope to see him rip one. I think that would be really cool. I know last year, he ran 14:48. He was helped by Aiden Troutner, who ran 14:48 was out. Aiden Troutner's time. 14:58 was what he ran. So, it'll be interesting because he's gonna be all alone this year. He's really been the top guy in the state. Do you think anybody else in any classification could even come close to what he's gonna run?
There's another guy in the 5A division, Thomas Boyden from Skyline. He's kind of been like that second or third guy this year in the state. I think he's going to be really good for Grant because Thomas likes to take the race out really hard that first mile and a half or so. So Grant's definitely going to have a guy on his shoulder to push him for that pace because Grant's going to control the race running at that pace for the course record. And I think Thomas is a guy that can hang with him for that first half of the race.
Awesome. And that kind of leads me to the next question is, who do you think is going to really surprise us tomorrow, team-wise and individual-wise? What are some of the people that might be flying under the radar as top athletes to look at nationally?
Yeah. Anna Martin, she's a big one. I mean, like you guys said, she was nationally ranked for a while, and she isn't now. And I think the state meet is a great place to kind of make a mark for herself, to kind of show that she's someone that could not only mix it up at these NXR regionals, but could possibly even place pretty high at nationals. Team wise, the boys, they're pretty straight on. American Fork, they're looking great. I'm excited to see how Davis does, just because Davis hasn't really raced American Fork all season. Like, I think the only place they've really raced them was the grass relays, and that's not your traditional race because it's a relay race. It's a 5 by 2 mile relay, so you can't really use that. But it'd be fun to see that old Davis American Fork rivalry.
I gotta get your thoughts on Lone Peaks girls. They're number 5 in our rankings.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts? They didn't race
they've
really
been
well at
running-
regions, so we're kind of curious what kind of team they are.
They have an amazing team right now. It's built to win. The biggest question in my mind is one of their top runners, Eliza Arrington, has kind of been absent since the Murray Invitational, which was mid-September. They were afraid that she had like a stress fracture, but their coaches told me that there's no injuries like that, and it's just kind of muscle soreness. So they've been kind of resting her, but she should be their team's #1 runner. So they've been doing all these amazing things without their #1 runner, who Eliza last year was a freshman. She missed qualifying for NXN individually by 3 spots, and then went to Foot Locker West Regionals and missed qualifying for Foot Locker Nationals by, again, 3 spots. So she's looking really strong. If they can get her back and healthy, then that just is a really solid team that could potentially make the podium.
Another ranked team, I think we mentioned, Desert Hills girls. They're in Class 4A. I think you talked about them a little bit, but according to the team projections, which were posted just a little bit ago for the virtual meet merge, they're supposed to win by 18 points. You think that's something that's possible, or you think that's that might be a little tough?
Is that in the 4A race or
It
meet
looks like the
merge?
4A
By
race.
scoring 18 points.
Scoring 18 points.
Oh yeah, that's kind of hard to gauge because those 3 mile times are based off of the Woodbridge race, which that's run at a lower elevation. It's a really fast course, and so when like we have teams go down to that race, they're always projected to win with a near perfect score. So if you take the Woodbridge times out, they're kind of projected to sit in that 2nd spot, right behind Lone Peak.
Gotcha. Interesting races, interesting matchups. Is there anything else that you think to add that we'd like to know about the state meet that you think will be interesting? Oh, I have one more question, actually. The Armstrongs, how do you think those guys are going to do? I remember seeing that Bob Furban, they both raced pretty well.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
First off, who are the
They-
Armstrongs, by the way? I don't know who the Armstrongs are.
Josh and Caleb Armstrong. Caleb is a senior and Josh is a sophomore. They're both running at Hurricane right now, which is pretty far down south in Utah. So we don't get to see them that much up here. But they've been running really well. Caleb was a guy that was supposed to be up with Grant this year, but he had a stress fracture. I can't remember where. I believe it was his femur in the track season just this spring. And so he's been like really just struggling with that this whole season. But I talked with him about like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he said he's feeling a lot better. He's been doing a lot of cross training. He ran at his regional meet about a week and a half ago, and he and his brother went 1-2. They finished less than a second apart, so it looks like they're kind of running that together.
Mm-hmm.
But those 2 guys are definitely guys that will kind of control that 4A boys race. They're both looking really good right now, and I'm excited to see what they do in the postseason.
Well, thank you, Josh. I really appreciate your insight into the state championships. Going down tomorrow, Sugarland Park. So thank you for your insight. We'll talk to you later, okay?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
See you later, man.
All right, see ya.
Yeah.
So last 3 NXM winners have come from, on the boys' side, have come from Utah. Utah has had a great tradition of producing national talent on the guys' side. The girls' side, not so much. We're looking to hopefully see some big things from the Lone Peaks of the world, the Desert Hills of the world. So it really should be a fun meet to learn some answers. Let's go to our pick'ems before we win the show. We've been up and down since we started this segment, and this segment should be no different. So let's go with the records first. Brian, you were 2-1. You got your first loss last week. Travis, you're 1-1. I'm 1-2. Kyle Deacon, completely wrong last week at Manhattan. He's 0-2. Parker on bye, as well as Kyle. She is 1-0 after picking Dana Hills last week. So I'll start with you guys first. What's your pick'ems?
I mean, CBA counts for both of our losses, so I think we're out on CBA at this point. Since we just talked about Utah, I'll stick with Utah. I think in that 4A girls race, Lone Peak are the heavy favorites, and that's why Davis girls are going to come in and pull off the upset.
I'm going to stick with the Utah State meet too, just because there's a lot of region meets going down. I think there's some easy picks. One of the guys I mentioned there, Josh Armstrong, I think he's just a sophomore. He finished 12th last year as a freshman at the 4A state meet. I think this year he's going to come away with the win. It's a tough battle, but I think he's a guy that could do it.
Yeah, make a pick that won't play out. I like those picks.
Just want to make a safe play. I don't want to go too safe and be like, oh yeah, Great Oak's gonna win Mount Sac. I think that's a pretty easy pick. But
I might be taking a safe pick here. But in Indiana, we have semi-state going down in Shelbyville. Two girls who matched up last year, Emma Wilson and Phoebe Bates, are going to go at it again at this meet. I'm going to pick Emma Wilson. She won last year. It's an easy pick, but I'm going to go with Emma. She's run really well. Phoebe has everything in it to win against Emma, but my pick's Emma Wilson. We'll see what happens. So that has been our MileSplit live show. Thank you for tuning in. As always, if you have any comments or questions, make sure to comment on Facebook, Twitter, reach out to us by email or anything else.
And make sure to head over to Twitter to vote for this week's Pizza Rolls Winner of the Week.
You will get pizza, as you saw from Caitlin Toohey.
Yeah, actual pizza. Thanks for watching MileSplit Live. We will be back next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. See ya.